What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Ray Garvin here live in Mobile, Alabama, Senior Bowl 2023, and I am joined by two talented hosts, two talented scouts, Damian Parson. DP, what's going on, my man?
What's
you
up,
good?
baby? What's going on?
Keith
Feeling
Sanchez, my dog. What's going on,
What up,
Keith?
baby?
Good
How
to
you
be
doing?
here. Good to be here. We are here with the Draft Network, and we are excited because today we're going to talk a little playmakers and difference makers, some cats that we are really excited to see on both sides of the ball, both offensively and defensively. You know, we have a unique opportunity to really get to see how these players perform on the field this week, get to see how they interact with each other and with us off of the field. So I want to start this off talking about a little hometown cooking. You know, I'm from Texas, so I got to talk about a Texas guy. But one of the playmakers that I'm really excited to see is Rashee Rice, wide receiver from SMU. You're talking about a cat, 6'2", 200 pounds. And, you know, this season led top 5 in the NCAA in receptions, top 10 in yards, top 12 in touchdowns. And to get an ability to see him down here versus some talented defensive backs, I mean, you look across the NFL right now of all these teams who are devoid of number 2 wide receiver. My Dallas Cowboys probably in search of a number 2 wide receiver. Right. We watched the Kansas City Chiefs. They advance onto the Super Bowl. But, you know, outside of Travis Kelce, it's a little sketchy on the outside. Rashee Rice, when I watch him, Keith, he reminds me of somebody that can step in and immediately be a number 2, number 3 wide receiver at the next level. Any thoughts on Rice and what you expect to see out of him down here in Mobile?
To your point, I think he has developmental ability to become a potential number 1 wide receiver. He has the size, he has the speed, the ball skills are incredible. All I want to see from him this week is in those one-on-ones, when you're faced with these long physical corners and one-on-one and press coverage, what's your release package? Show me that, because that's what's going to dictate how you are able to free yourself up and win on your own, not just be based on movement and scheme at the next level.
Keith, what about you, man?
No, I don't think there's a more important drill than one-on-one for wide receiver DBs, right? We just yesterday seen, the Cincinnati Bengals, and what does Joe Burrow do? Throw those 50-50 balls, right? And it's a must for that Cincinnati Bengals offense to operate, that those wide receivers win those 50-50 balls when they're one-on-one matchups. So when you talk about a receiver like Rashee Rice, you even think about, a T. Higgins type style football player. So I think, man, this is big for him because he's been a second-round guy, but I think he can definitely elevate himself to a first-round potential player.
Well, speaking of wide receivers, you got a cat that you like out of the Big 12 that we'll get a chance to see, Xavier Hutchinson. Talk a little bit about him and why you think he could be a playmaker at the next level.
Production, man. And listen, haven't seen Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase live and in person day in and day out, right? Route running is so important for wide receivers, and when you cut on the film with Xavier Hutchinson, you could tell that he just simply gets it. Playing the wide receiver position is not all about running the route as fast as you can, right? It's all about tempo, and you see that Xavier Hutchinson has the tempo, and then we just talked about those contested catches. Man, cut on the highlights, man. It's crazy. Talking about a guy that goes completely sideways to catch balls. He's a slot fade type guy. You could throw the ball up. He's 6'3", 200-plus pounds. So he's another guy when you talk about can possibly step up to be a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL offense. I think he has that potential.
DP, any thoughts on Xavier Hutchinson?
No, I really like him. You know what I mean? Just watching his game, the thing that Keith said about the tempo, the way he knows how to alter his speeds of his routes, like manipulative. You know what I mean? And some people look at that word as a bad thing about people, but by football players, you want to be manipulative in some way, shape, or form to get guys out of their spots. He does a great job of that, man. So I'm excited to see him and really get a feel for his speed in person as well, to see what that really feels like when he's running his routes and when he's attacking the third level of the defense.
Well, talk to us about Dontavion Wicks, another wide receiver. We're talking about all these wide receivers and playmakers, but talk to us about Wicks because, publicly, a lot of people are talking about Rashee Rice and, some of the bigger names. But Wicks, I don't know a lot about him. So what should we expect from him? And you've got him on this playmakers list. What are you looking forward to seeing from him down here?
Man, guys, the saying is out of sight, out of mind. In 2021, he was one of the better receivers in college football, especially in the ACC. He was a dominant force. Talking about ball skills, body control, leaping ability. There's reps of him like literally leaping over 2 defenders to catch fades in the back of the end zone. It's just that Virginia offense did not take the step we all expected it to with the new head coach. So I want to see him now. This is an opportunity for this young man who's over 6 foot. He's got a decent build to him, and he could play on the outside. He could play in the slot. I want to see him really come in and take this mindset of I got to put my name back in the hat.
Right.
People don't remember what I'm able to do. The route running that he was pretty solid at, the good hands, and I want to see his speed as well. This was a really productive receiver in 2021, guys. It's just 2022 did not go the way that we expected.
Well, I'll tell you what 2022 did go as expected for the Georgia Bulldogs as they won a national championship. And I think, DP, that you like the running back position. I think you know a little bit about running backs, right? Now, there's a running back. Now, Georgia, when we think about Georgia, DP, Keith, I mean, over the last – since Nick Chubb, Todd Gurley, they use a stable of running backs constantly, right? There's never a guy. Kenny McIntosh, you have him as one of your playmakers. He's here in Mobile, Senior Bowl. Talk to us about Kenny McIntosh and what you expect to see amongst a very, very talented running back group here.
Man, the phrase that comes to mind is the more you can do. And when you think about as a running back, it's easy to phase a running back who can only run the ball out of the game. Right? If the other offense is able to put up quick points, we could kind of take that out of the game. Kenny McIntosh is a guy that can play all three downs. He can run gap. He can run zone. But the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, he is extremely talented, and he has a prototypical size. So you think back to, I think it was the Ohio State game in the playoffs. They threw a wide receiver screen to him, and he took it for a touchdown, right? Showed the burst, the speed, and the ability to weave through traffic and find open lanes. So I'm excited to see this young man because the crazy thing about it is, even though he was their lead back, he also – was part of a stable, and that helps him because they still tread on those tires, baby. So I really am excited to see what he's going to do. I'm for these linebackers, hey, man, strap them up, baby. Strap them up because when you get to those one-on-ones, he's going to really give you some trouble.
Let me kick it about that, right? Kenny McIntosh is one of those running backs to where, as a coaching staff or offensive coordinator, you ask yourself, do I have to take this guy off the field?
Right.
And the answer is no, right? Because DP just talked about zone, power, and then what he provides in the passing game. So we know that, right? The rotational running backs, 3rd and 15, obvious passing downs, what we're going to do, right? Who we're going to take out and who we're going to put in. But for Kenny McIntosh, it's like, you know what? Keep him in there, right? And as a well-rounded running back, he can come do this, the Senior Bowl, and then have an opportunity to really just elevate his draft stock because he'll be viewed as a complete running back.
Well, it's interesting because as we look across the NFL landscape today, whether it's Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon, we saw some Ronald Jones last night. You look at Cincinnati with Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine, you're seeing more teams utilize multiple running backs, and they all have different diverse skill sets. And one of the guys that you have on your list, Keith, Tajay Spears out of Tulane. I mean, listen, when I see him and I see the explosion, and it pains me because he tore up my USC Trojans.
Oh, man,
I don't want to talk about this.
I don't want
to talk about this. But Keith, I'm excited to see him. But talk to us about the type of player that you expect to see this week and the type of player that you think Tajay Spears could be at the next level.
Yeah, I expect one word, explosiveness, man. I expect him to set himself apart being an explosive playmaker. And listen, this year in the NFL, right, we've seen that they're getting back to running the football, but it's still that want for explosive plays, right? So we want explosive plays in a run game, and he could provide that. His running style, and I hate, throw this name out there, but just similar if he goes to the right system, I think about a Breece Hall, right? When you give that guy a run lane and you give him creative things, whether it's any type of zone type of play, and, man, you get that guy to run lane, it's over with, right? Because the guy's flat out explosive. He's shifty on the 2nd and 3rd levels, and he can make things happen. So we talk about a rotational type guy, come here, be able to show that he can catch the football. But I think is also having a chip on his shoulder, right? Because we talked about Tulane going to USC, and they had to show him, right? It was the Pac-12 versus the AAC and let them know that we big dogs. And I think Tajay is going to come here with a chip on his shoulder and show that, you know what, man, I'm ready to play with the best of the best.
To your point, too, Keith, when you think about Tajay Spears, when I watched him, shout out to Joe Marino because he was the one who put him on my radar.
Yeah, he definitely did.
He kept telling me to watch him. The first thing I remember writing down was angle breaker.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure I pronounce that angle, not ankle, angle breaker. And he has that type of speed to where even if you think the angle from a defender is correct, it's still wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He has that type of explosiveness, that burst and that long speed to where you think of him as a change of pace back. You put him in the backfield with a more physical running back, and like the defense is getting ward. It's 4th down. You sub him in, it's like, all right, we have a problem. Because if he gets through the first and second level of the defense, now my third level, my safeties, my corners from across the field, now they're put in a compromised position to chase down this elite speed type of talent. I'm excited to see this kid in the open field, man.
I think about also, too, you talk about that combination. I think about Tony Pollard, right? Where when you take Zeke out and you put him in, the speed
contrast of
difference
styles
is evident, right? Like you said, it's contrast in styles. So he definitely has the opportunity to be one of those type of guys. And maybe you see a team like maybe the Titans, right? They try to switch it up a little bit and pair Derrick Henry with a Tajay Spears just to throw things off a little bit, right? Because defenders, once you get to the fourth quarter and Derrick Henry has been running you over the whole time, you trying to break down like to make a powerful tackle, and Tajay Spears takes it over the top. So, man, I think he's a guy that can come in and really make some noise.
Well, another one of those kind of cats here, Chase Brown out of Illinois. I mean, one of the nation's leading rushers, over 300 rush attempts, 1,700 yards. He and his brother both, Sidney Brown, are both here. And from what I heard, I haven't seen them yet, but I heard they are built. They are put together well. But Chase Brown is somebody that I'm really excited to see. In a league where multiple backs are being used, I think he's the type of cat that, is he going to come in and be an immediate starter? Breece Hall wasn't an immediate starter, but I definitely think Chase Brown is the type of cat that's going to find some opportunity at the next level as a playmaker. I really want to talk about Tank Dell real quick.
Let's talk about
because we're talking about explosiveness and explosion, and he's got to be one of the most, not just explosive players here in Mobile, but maybe in this draft class. And you have him as one of your playmakers. Now, what I will ask you is, it seems like a couple of years ago, everyone was like nervous about these smaller type wide receivers, right? And we're seeing Devontae Smith debunk that. Deontay Johnson kind of debunk that. If you could play, you could play. Talk to us about Tank Dell, this explosive playmaker out of Houston.
Yeah, so I want to kind of change the philosophy, right? Because especially on the back end, because when we think football, we just think big, powerful, strong guys, right? But I had one of my guys, Dwayne Thomas. He played in the NFL, and he told me, he said, "Man, he said, I got to the NFL and lost weight." He said, "It's a track meet out there, baby." He said, "You better be able to run." He said, "It's a track meet." And so that leads me to believe that a guy like Tank Dell, right, can just thrive in that system. We've seen that they put wide receivers in motion. They do so many different things to where these smaller, more dynamic wide receivers are making plays because defensive backs can't get their hands on them and they can't keep up with them. So what do you do with that? So, man, you slot Tank Dell anywhere. You're talking about an explosive guy that's going to take it over the top. I'm expecting this at practice. He's going to make one defensive back look silly. He's going to have a viral moment at the Senior Bowl because he's just that explosive, that quick, that shifty of a playmaker.
To pair with that, when you have a receiver that has all of the things you just said and that understands leverage and how to stem defenders off of their spot to get to where he wants to go, that's a really dangerous combination.
Yeah.
To be explosive, to be shifty, to be quick, but also have the knowledge of, all right, you want to square me up? I'm going to move you off the spot, move you outside so I can break in on that slant. That's and it's on tape. So I'm excited to see this young man as well.
Well, let's talk about another dynamic, explosive, versatile playmaker, DP, Luke Musgrave.
Yeah.
I mean, we've only been here for like 5 minutes, and all I keep hearing about is Luke Musgrave, Luke Musgrave. Talk to us about this playmaker out of Oregon State at this tight end position now where you could flex guys out, in-line, H-back. What are you expecting to see from Musgrave?
I'm expecting to see speed, man. You talking about a straight line athlete that really can give linebackers trouble. You think about the play action pass and the RPO game and all the different things that they use to make those second level defenders in the NFL make that false step, take that step forward. If you take the wrong step forward and Luke Musgrave has a free access to grass, it's a legitimate track meet. And I think with that, he has good ball skills. He has the height and the body type to really be somebody that can flex into the slot. You could flex him out wide as well also. So here for him, I'm excited to see him because he didn't get to finish the season because he got hurt early in the season. So being healthy, now you really get to see him in those blocking drills, see him detach from the line of scrimmage in those one-on-ones. I'm really excited for this explosive playmaker because at the end of the day, we know the biggest mismatch in the NFL starts at the tight end position.
In position, there it is, man.
Listen, I agree. He is a who is that player. When you see him, because I seen him last night in the lobby, and you double take and you say, who is that, right? Because man, he looks the part, man. You're talking about 6'4", 6'5". I don't know, he might be 6'6". Whatever the guy tells me, from what I've seen, I believe it. I'm not double checking it. I believe him. And then you talk about that skill set of him being a flex guy. I want people to understand that this is a real tight end. This is not a wide receiver converted, right? This is the real deal. This is somebody's tight end one, and he definitely looks the part.
All right, we went through a bunch of playmakers, right? We went through a bunch of offensive guys, but I'm done. I'm done with the offense. I want to let's get to the hard-hitting defenders. I want to talk about that dirty side of the ball, defense, baby.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, we're watching the teams that are in the Super Bowl right now, and they dominated in the trenches, right? They dominated in the trenches up front defensively. I don't care how good you are. You got to be able to make a stop. You got to be able to make a stop. And when you need it, right? Keith, we're going to start in the trenches. Auburn's got a guy. Derek Hall, right? Derek Hall, trenches, edge, Derek Hall. Talk to us about this difference maker on the defensive side of the ball, Derek Hall.
Another who is that type of guy when you see him. We all seen him, the TDN staff seen him last night, and we all looked at each other and said, who is that, right? And he's that big, man. You're talking about a guy that's physically imposing, and you say, you know what, without the film, without anything, I just want that guy on my team, right? I just want that guy somewhere around me. And then you cut on the film, and you see that he applies that physical just appearance to what he does, right, on film and being able to rush the passer. We seen yesterday the Chiefs, right? Like, you piss off Chris Jones, and guess what? He dominated the game, right? Frank Clark, those big guys, when they take it personal and they motivated, you're in trouble up front. And I think Derek Hall has that opportunity to make a lot of offensive lines feel like, man, we in trouble. So, man, Derek Hall, I definitely have him circled. I think he's going to elevate here, man. I think the physical strength, natural strength that he has, I think he's going to elevate. He's going to dominate.
Nah, 100%. You know, that's one of my guys. I love Derek Hall.
I was going to say, you like him, too, because I remember on a meeting you've talked about him as well, right?
That is, like, you see the necessary things that translates to the league, man.
Yeah.
That first step explosiveness off the edge, the power, you know what I mean, the length. He's got great length in his arms and the ability to convert that speed to power, right? And it's like not only that, but then talking to people and hearing about this young man, it's like, yo, blocking is like playing defense in the NBA. It's a want-to type of thing.
Want to do it
before it's technique.
Right.
And Derek Hall wants to demolish tight ends when the run game. Set that hard edge, right? As a former running back, you don't want to see that. You know what I mean? You don't want to see that big physical frame flash before your eyes like, nope, I got to cut it back inside.
Right.
It might be safer with the defensive tackles. You don't want that. So for him, I'm excited to see him, especially in those one-on-ones, because these tackles better be ready. If you're going to short set him, you better have balance, because when he half-mans you and gives you that long arm, he can take you to the ground.
Well, let's talk about a little bit deeper in the defensive side of the ball, because once you get that pressure, you need your secondary defenders to step up and make a play. Now, out in the Pac-12, Caillou Blue-Kelly, cornerback out of Stanford, somebody that coming into this process at the beginning of the season, very highly touted.
Right.
You know, he's had some great moments this season, and he's had some struggles as well. Defensive back is a tough position. But what are you looking forward to seeing from him to be a potential difference maker at the next level, this cornerback out of Stanford?
Man, I'm looking to see him thrive in man-to-man.
Let's get it.
This is a man-to-man corner through and through. He has the NFL bloodlines. His dad played football at the highest level as well. And then you look at him, he has a track background coming out of high school, 100 and 200 meters. So he can run, he can move, but he's physical. But he also has the mental patience to know, all right, when should I be physical, right? Like we talked about last night.
Yeah.
My phrase is controlled aggression. And you understand and know when to throw your punches, when to be aggressive in the contact window, and when should I just give you 2 yards and soft shoe you and soft press you and then move with you. And he has good hips. He can move with guys. So I'm excited to see him in those one-on-ones, because you talk about being able to make a name for yourself and make money against these type of receivers we have down in Mobile, the talent that Jim Nagy brought in. He's got a chance to really elevate his game.
I agree 100%, man. I think he can really come in here and showcase something, right? Because I think what you start to see is that these guys come through the draft process and now they can separate themselves. I hate to say it from the team, but from the season, right? Because a lot of it is hype, through the season, who's playing well, who's doing good, and then you kind of associate that player with the team, right? If the team's doing bad, then Caillou Blue-Kelly must not be doing good. But now he gets to kind of separate himself, be his own individual, start this draft process, and really go through the process. And I think he's going to dominate out here.
Let's stick with the DBs and talk about it. Let's go back to the national champion Georgia Bulldogs. And I don't know what position this player is. I'm going to just say defensive back. But every time that I watch the tape or you're watching Georgia, he flashes, right? Christopher Smith. And I'll let you talk about him. Is he a safety? Is he a corner? Is he a star? What is he, and what do you expect to see from him?
Yeah, so he's one of those guys where I just say, you know what, he's a starter, right? You don't worry about the position. He's one of your top 11 football players, and you put him on the field, man. And I think that's key right now, right? Because we know that the NFL, they like to pass the football, right? So as a safety, you better be able to cover, right? And as a corner, you better be able to tackle. Christopher Smith is a complete defensive back on the back end. I'm expecting at the Senior Bowl him to get some run at corner just to kind of showcase that, hey, I can do that. Then also play safety too. And when you cut on the film, what do you see? You see a play that's extremely instinctual, man. And I always say this: you cannot coach instincts. There's no way you can do it. It's one of those intangibles that we say with quarterbacks being a leader. You cannot coach instincts and ability to get your hands on a football. Christopher Smith has not been the biggest name on this Georgia defense, right? You talk about Keely Ringo, Jalen Carter, but he has been one of the most consistent playmakers. And when you watch the film, you know that he is one of the leaders, right? When you're talking about making checks and getting everybody aligned. So I'm excited to see him because he's one of those guys that I want to see, I guess, like I said, the intangibles show up and see how people gravitate towards him and see how he embraces the moment here.
Nah, 100%. Like he's. You think back to that playoff game. You know what I mean? Well, they blew. Yeah, you know. But like the SEC championship game against LSU, there was a missed field goal, blocked field goal.
Yeah.
The ball was still live. LSU's walking off the field. Christopher Smith grabs the ball. He looks around.
The coach is telling him, "Don't touch it."
Right. Everybody telling him, "Don't touch the ball." He's like, "Nah, they didn't blow the whistle." Right. He took it back for a touchdown. Right. But then also you just see the ability to break on passes, the leadership, everything that Keith said, and like the instincts are so good because, matter of fact, week 1 consecutive seasons, he had an interception on the exact same play. DJU against Clemson last year, they ran a fake screw, a bubble screen with the double slants. He read it from up high, drove down, intercepted it. Bo Nix, they ran the exact same concept week 1 for Oregon versus Georgia. The exact same thing. He picked it that time too. And you know what I mean? So it's like you see a guy that's also a student of the game and works hard not just in the weight room, but more so in the film room, so he knows what teams are trying to run against his defense.
Well, let's get back down and dirty. Let's go D-line. Let's go D-line, DP. And let's talk about a guy out of Georgia Tech, Keon White. And I don't know much about him. So
most don't.
So talk to us, man.
Man, you talking about a guy that's 290 that moves like he's 260.
Okay.
There's a rep.
I'm interested.
Where he's standing up as an outside edge rusher, and he takes a running back about 40 yards downfield on a wheel route. Like, he's a defensive lineman, by the way. Like, 290 pounds. This is a 185, 90-pound running back that he's stride for stride with. This is an explosive athlete. Can get up the field in a hurry, violent physical hands. The crazy thing about it, he's still young in the position. He was a tight end at Old Dominion when he first declared to go there, and then he switched positions to D line. And of course, COVID kind of got in the way of his 2020 season. So for me, man, this is a kid that we have not even seen him like really scratch the ceiling yet, and the frame, the physicality, that play inside, bump him down play outside, bump down inside. But if you really want him to, he can drop in coverage. He's so athletic at that size. I'm expecting him to make some wild plays that people are going to be like, yo, that guy I need on my team.
Love it.
Nah, the reason why we call this difference makers, right, is because they may not come into the game hype, right? They may not be the CBS, ESPN pregame players to look out for, but guess what? When you cut on the game and you start watching, you be like, damn, we need to block him, right? And that's just how it comes off. And you think about another Super Bowl-bound team in the Philadelphia Eagles. You know what they have? Really good defensive linemen, right? Like, those guys flat out dominate because they're going to have to show at some point throughout the playoff run. And I think for the Philadelphia Eagles, that's been a key part of their defense. And I think that Keon White is definitely a top player to look out for because the size, speed, athleticism, man, checks all the boxes, and he plays hard.
Well, let's talk about a team and a position, Keith, that historically has put – I mean, we can go back to Deontay Hightower, C.J. Mosley, Rolando McClain, just the list of linebackers go on and on and on. But Alabama, right? Henry To'oTo'o, he's going to be here. And I was very excited to see that he accepted his invitation. But difference maker, right? Talk to us about Henry To'oTo'o and what you expect to see from him this week in Mobile.
I continue to mention his name because I believe truly that this is a top 30 football player. Listen what I say, a top 30 football player.
Say that one more time. Say that again.
Top 30 football player. Say it with your chest, man, from an instincts perspective and just fat out playing the position. He doesn't play the sexiest position, right? Linebackers are kind of the running backs of offense, right? Where everybody just wants to disrespect him and doesn't want to pay him until you see Fred Warner running around there, until you see Dre Greenlaw, and then everybody's like, hey, I want one of those. Well, you know what? Go find them, draft them, and put some respect on their name. Henry To'oTo'o, extremely instinctual guy, transferred from Tennessee to Alabama, he immediately became a starter, consistently rose his production every single year, man. You're talking about a guy flies sideline to sideline, can move to play the nickel position, right, which is rare, and just a complete football player. So Henry To'oTo'o is somebody I'm going to consistently remind people, and if I put him in the first round of my mock, it's because I damn sure like him. So it is what it is, man. Henry To'oTo'o, hell of a football player.
I love the instincts because people question his speed, right? They question his athleticism. Well, when you can be a step ahead of the offense, it eliminates a lot of that problem, right? You know what I mean? When all the eye candy, the pre-snap motion, the things that can really mess with linebackers, it doesn't get to Henry because he is instinctual. He's disciplined, and you could tell he puts the work in. So I think he's gonna have a nice week out here, man. And like I said, the run drills, I'm keyed in on Henry To'oTo'o, man.
Well, what a better way to close this out with sticking with the linebacker position, because you've got a guy, again, admittedly, I don't know much about him, out of Washington State, Daiyan Henley. Yeah. Talk to us about this linebacker and close us out with why you think this is a difference maker.
Man, downhill, his trigger downhill is legit. It's explosive. He plays with his hair on fire as well. I love the way he attacks as a blitzer. I've seen him come off the edge, and then he's got the athleticism, I believe, to drop off in coverage as well. So you think about those one-on-one drills, those coverage drills, but then attacking and being physical. Keith, we were here last year. We watched different position, but we watched Jermaine Johnson be physical in the run game, right? Just throwing tight ends and offensive linemen off of him. So I think Daiyan Henley has a chance to really showcase himself as a true linebacker in this class.
I agree, and you talk about one of those matchup issues, right? I think it's a guy that was a converted safety to linebacker.
Really?
And and the thing is, it pops off on the film. Like, you see that this guy is a true athlete. So one-on-one situations, I'm expecting him to really show up. But like you said, the physical temperament that he has to play with in the run game, I think is going to separate him and is what teams are going to be looking for. That's going to be key, because I expect that he's going to run pretty fast, right? I think he's a 4 or 5 guy. Feel pretty confident about that. But just the physicality that he brings in the run game, and talking about being a complete linebacker, is definitely somebody to look out for with Daiyan Henley.
For sure.
Man, this is y'all got me excited, man. Y'all got me excited. If
it's
I wasn't,
football season,
it's
all
football
over.
season.
Draft season.
You got
baby.
me ready to go out there and practice, but unfortunately, my time in the sun is over, so I'll leave it to the young men. But we are happy to be here, provide you coverage all week here at the Draft Network. We've got talented scouts, we've got talented writers, we've got a talented team of people that will be bringing you premium content all week. So for Damian Parson, for Keith Sanchez, I'm Ray Garvin. This is the Draft Network. Make sure you subscribe to everything that we're doing, and stay locked in. We got some good stuff for y'all, man. We out of this thing. Peace.